At some point after the age of 60, something quietly changes inside many men. One day, they're always available. They answer every phone call. They show up whenever someone needs them. They keep the family together, solve other people's problems, and carry responsibilities without complaining. Then, almost without warning, they disappear. No arguments. No dramatic farewell. No long explanations. Just silence. If you've ever wondered why some senior men suddenly cut everyone off, why they walk away from people they once loved, and why once they make that decision they rarely look back, then stay with me. Because the psychology behind this behavior is far deeper than most people realize. For many older men, walking away isn't an impulsive act or a sign of bitterness. It's often the final chapter of an emotional journey that has been unfolding for decades. Before we go any further, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever known someone who slowly disappeared from family gatherings, stopped answering calls, or quietly withdrew from relationships without ever explaining why? Or perhaps you've experienced that feeling yourself. Share your thoughts in the comments below, because your story may help someone else realize they are not alone. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind human behavior and relationships, make sure you subscribe so you never miss future conversations like this. I'm Mary Smith, host of Senior Mindful Living YouTube channel. Today, we're going to explore a topic that is often misunderstood, even by the people living through it. Because when an older man chooses distance over connection, what looks like rejection on the outside is often something very different on the inside. Many people assume aging automatically makes people lonelier, softer, or more dependent. But psychology paints a much more complex picture. As we grow older, our perception of time changes. Researchers studying emotional aging have found that many older adults become increasingly selective about where they invest their emotional energy. Time no longer feels endless. Every conversation, every conflict, every relationship begins to carry greater emotional weight. Imagine carrying a backpack every day for 40 years. At first, you barely notice it. You grow stronger, adapt to the weight, and keep moving forward. But little by little, people begin placing their own burdens inside your backpack. A family member's financial troubles, a friend's endless complaints, workplace stress, marriage challenges, the responsibility of raising children, caring for aging parents, keeping everyone together during difficult times. Most men simply keep walking because they believe that's what they're supposed to do. Eventually, something changes. It isn't that the backpack suddenly becomes heavier. It's that the man carrying it realizes he no longer has the strength or the desire to carry everyone else's load as well as his own. This emotional exhaustion is one of the deepest psychological reasons many senior men quietly withdraw. Notice that this isn't physical tiredness. Many men in their 60s remain remarkably active. They travel, volunteer, exercise, garden, and pursue hobbies they've always enjoyed. The exhaustion we're talking about is emotional. It's the fatigue that comes from constantly being the dependable one, while rarely feeling emotionally supported yourself. For decades, many men learned to suppress vulnerability. Society often praised them for being reliable rather than emotionally expressive. They became experts at solving problems, but beginners at expressing pain. Every disappointment was quietly absorbed. Every betrayal was privately processed. Every sacrifice became another invisible layer beneath the surface. Eventually, invisible burdens become impossible to ignore. One retired gentleman shared a story that perfectly illustrates this. Every holiday, his home was filled with family. He paid for meals, hosted celebrations, fixed broken appliances, babysat grandchildren, and drove relatives wherever they needed to go. One year, after experiencing health issues, he decided to step back and simply rest. Something surprising happened. The phone stopped ringing. Not completely, but enough for him to notice that many conversations had always begun with someone needing something. Very few began with a simple question, "How are you doing?" That realization didn't make him angry. It made him aware. Awareness often changes behavior more powerfully than confrontation ever could. This brings us to another important psychological shift. Younger men often believe effort can solve almost every relationship problem. If they communicate more clearly, become more patient, apologize again, or sacrifice a little more, things will eventually improve. Hope is a beautiful quality, but experience teaches different lessons. By the age of 60, many men have witnessed repeating cycles. Promises that were never kept. Apologies followed by identical behavior. Respect offered only when something was needed. Eventually, they stop listening only to words and begin trusting consistent patterns. Psychologists often remind us that past behavior is one of the strongest predictors of future behavior. Older adults tend to recognize these behavioral patterns much faster because they've observed them across decades. This is why their decisions often appear sudden. To everyone else, the withdrawal seems to happen overnight. But internally, the decision may have been forming for years. Quiet observation replaces emotional arguments. Instead of asking someone to change for the 10th time, they simply accept that the person probably won't. Acceptance isn't always giving up. Sometimes it's seeing reality clearly. Another profound transformation happens after 60. Identity begins to shift. For much of life, many men define themselves through roles. Provider, husband, father, employee, leader, protector. These roles give purpose, but they can also become prisons if a person forgets who they are outside of them. Retirement, grown children, changing family dynamics, and aging naturally create space for deeper reflection. Questions begin to emerge. Who am I when nobody needs me today? What actually brings me joy? How do I want to spend the years I have left? Surprisingly, countless older adults answer these questions with one simple word. Peace. Not perfection. Not admiration. Not constant excitement. Peace. Peace looks different for everyone. For one man, it's fishing alone before sunrise. For another, it's drinking coffee on the porch without hearing criticism. For someone else, it's finally saying no without feeling guilty. Once peace becomes the priority, unnecessary conflict loses its appeal. That's why people are often shocked when an older man no longer participates in family drama. He's not necessarily choosing isolation. He's choosing emotional stability. And stability becomes priceless when you realize time is limited. There's another uncomfortable truth many older men quietly discover. Some relationships were built more on usefulness than genuine connection. This realization can be heartbreaking. Think about how often appreciation becomes invisible when someone is consistently dependable. The reliable person becomes expected, not celebrated. If dad always fixes everything, if grandpa always lends money, if he always says yes, eventually people may begin assuming he always will. Human psychology easily adapts to consistency. What once felt like generosity slowly becomes expectation. The moment that expectation is interrupted, relationships sometimes change. An older man may finally say, "I can't help this time." Instead of receiving understanding, he receives disappointment. Not because people are intentionally selfish, but because expectations had quietly replaced gratitude. Those moments become revealing. Questions naturally arise. Would this person still visit if I couldn't solve their problems? Would they still call if I had nothing to offer except my company? Those questions don't always produce pleasant answers. This is one reason many older men become more selective rather than more social. And perhaps that's wisdom rather than loneliness. Respect also begins carrying greater importance. When we're younger, we often tolerate behavior we shouldn't. We excuse dismissive comments. We overlook broken boundaries. We convince ourselves things will improve. Age often brings something incredibly valuable. Clarity. Clarity allows people to distinguish between occasional mistakes and consistent character. One disrespectful moment may be forgivable. A repeated pattern is something entirely different. Older adults often understand this distinction better because they've lived through enough relationships to recognize the difference. That's why many senior men stop offering endless second chances. Not because they've become cruel, because they've become realistic. Self-respect eventually outweighs approval. There's another fascinating psychological principle worth mentioning. Researchers studying emotional well-being later in life have consistently found that many older adults prefer fewer but deeper relationships rather than maintaining large social circles filled with emotional strain. Quality replaces quantity. Think about your closest friendships. Would you rather have 20 acquaintances who only appear when they need something? Or 2 people who genuinely care whether you're happy? Most people instinctively know the answer. Older men simply begin living according to it. This emotional selectivity is often mistaken for coldness. But genuine selectivity is different from emotional shutdown. A man who protects his peace may still laugh easily, still love deeply, still welcome sincere people. The difference is that he no longer gives unlimited access to everyone. Access becomes earned through consistency, honesty, and mutual respect. One beautiful lesson many older people eventually learn is that boundaries don't push healthy people away. They reveal unhealthy dynamics. People who truly care usually respect reasonable boundaries. Those who benefited from having none often become upset. That reaction alone can reveal a great deal. Perhaps the greatest psychological shift of all happens when older men finally begin asking themselves one difficult question. Who has been taking care of me? Many spend decades asking how to help everyone else. Few stop long enough to ask what they themselves need emotionally. The answer isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's simply rest. Sometimes it's genuine conversation. Sometimes it's forgiveness. Sometimes it's permission to stop carrying responsibilities that no longer belong to them. Contrary to popular belief, choosing yourself after years of self-sacrifice isn't selfish. It's balance. A healthy life requires both giving and receiving. Many older men discover they mastered the first while neglecting the second. If you're watching this and you're approaching 60, or you're already there, perhaps this is your reminder that protecting your emotional well-being doesn't require abandoning everyone. Healthy solitude and unhealthy isolation are very different things. The healthiest older adults don't cut off every relationship. They simply become intentional. They nurture relationships built on trust. They let go of relationships built on guilt. They welcome people who bring calm instead of chaos. And they create healthy distance from those who repeatedly drain their emotional energy. If someone in your own life has become quieter recently, consider this possibility before assuming they've become bitter. Maybe they're simply tired. Maybe they've spent decades giving more than they received. Maybe they're finally learning a lesson many people don't learn until much later. That peace isn't found by pleasing everyone. It's found by honoring your own emotional limits while remaining open to genuine love, kindness, and mutual respect. As we come to the end of today's conversation, I'd like to leave you with something to think about. If tomorrow you reach the age of 60, would the relationships surrounding you bring comfort or constant pressure? Would the people in your life celebrate who you are or only what you can do for them? Take a quiet moment to reflect on that question. Then come back and share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective could encourage someone else who may be struggling with the same feelings. If today's discussion gave you a new understanding of why some senior men quietly choose distance, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might benefit from hearing this me. Sage, thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.